The next thing I want to do is get a good, quick, rough mix. Again, we want to do it quickly to keep our ears fresh and to hear things how a new listener might be hearing them. Let's open the mixer and let's hear a bit of it. Now, the first thing I'm noticing is the mix overall sounds a bit dark. Now, usually we go back and fix track by track to get our EQ or our frequencies to sound right. But that takes a little more time, and you can spend 3 or 4 hours on that and lose focus. Again, we want to do this quickly. So because the mix is overall dark, let's put an EQ on the master bus fader. I have one here in Pro Tools already. So all the tracks are going here. So anything we do here on the inserts is going to affect all the tracks at once. So let's add an EQ here and see if we can't get the mix to sound better with just one EQ. We'll try adding a high shelving. Notice right away, it sounds a lot better. Before and after. Now let's see if we can't get rid of some of the mud in the lower mid-range. Sounds a lot better. Now typically, this is pretty unconventional, to start off by EQing the 2-bus, but you can see how useful it is, because very quickly, the mix sounds a lot more balanced, at least in the EQ. So instead of working track by track, we could work backwards from this EQ, by readjusting this EQ on each individual track, but starting with it on the master. Now another thing I like to do on the master fader is add a bit of compression, just so the mix glues together a bit. So let's try adding a compressor after this EQ. I'm going to use the channel strip by Metric Halo. It's one of my favorite stereo compressors. And we're just going to use it to compress. So don't worry about the EQ or the gate. We're just going to go over here to our compressor, adjust the threshold right here at a ratio of 3.6 to 1, which is a decent amount, an attack of 144 milliseconds, and release of about 121 milliseconds. So it's a fairly quick release. So it's going to respond pretty quickly. Let's hear it. Notice how punchy it sounds right away? But that's way too much. Let's just use a little bit of this. Before, notice it sounds a bit loose. It's not really cohesive. And then with it back on, it's a bit tighter. So let's go with this, and we can readjust it as we're mixing. Now another thing I want to add to the Master 2 bus is a multi-band compressor. This one is also by Metric Halo. And right now, it's set very subtly. It divides the signal into 3 separate bands, which we could change: low, mid, and high. Right now the lows are 100 Hz and below, the mids are between 100 Hz and 5 kHz, and the highs are 5 kHz and above. What this does, you don't really hear the compression happening, but it tightens up each frequency separately from each other. So it sounds more subtle, but it tightens things up. Let's hear it. Before. To hear it more extreme, we could adjust the highs. You still hear the compression, but each frequency is compressing separately. Low, mids, and highs, so it sounds more subtle. But let's put this back so we don't hear the effect too much. Before. Notice how it tightens up the low end and also makes the top end a lot more even. Another thing I like about this compressor is the limiter. Over here, we're not using it right now. But if we did, it could be very dramatic. So we might play with this a bit later, or use this on some of the individual tracks, but for now, let's leave it off so the effect on the 2 bus is a bit more subtle. So that's pretty good. Now let's hear all the effects turned off versus on to see if we made it better. Off. That's a lot better. In fact, it sounds a little too bright. Let's go back to our EQ. And let's add a little less EQ to the top end. That's better. Before. After. It's pretty dramatic. And again, the purpose of this is to adjust the frequencies of the entire mix right at the beginning, before we even start mixing. So we have a good overall sonic picture of what the mix should sound like. Everything after this is fine-tuning. If we did it the other way, we could spend 3 or 4 hours in this mix, come back and listen to it and go, the mix is too bright or too dark. We lost our focus. By focusing quickly on the overall sound right at the beginning, we get it pretty close, and then we could fine-tune later on without losing our way. So now let's dig in deeper and get a better rough mix. We'll turn off everything but the drums. Notice we panned the guitar head and the saxophone away from each other because they're both playing the lead melody, just to give them their own space. Let's solo that. It just sounds wider, and we can hear each instrument in the melody a bit more separately because they have their own space. Let's check out the beginning guitar right here. That sounds a lot better. It's a pretty good rough mix. And we can listen to it a couple of times all the way through to really get an idea what this track is doing, what's working and what's not working, what moves us and what doesn't. By putting effects on the master bus, we got to this point much sooner. Now everything from here is just fine tuning. So that's our rough mix. Let's move on to the drums.